Om Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Vishaje Bhavaroginam Gurave Sarva Lokanam Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. So we are going to continue with our questions. These are pertaining, I think, to you are at the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So almost getting towards the end of it. So question number 1 here is the service for the care of animals considered the same in importance as service to humans? These kinds of questions where there is comparison, they cannot be easily answered with a binary yes or no. So generally there are two things you take, and then between the two, which is more important, which is less important. It really depends on so many factors. That's the idea. So here we are talking of service to animals. Obviously, this is at different levels. One can understand this question, or from different standpoints. So what does one mean by service? And what are the circumstances? What is the context? These are all important things that go to answering the question. I guess this question comes from the standpoint of dharma, right and wrong, right and wrong. So here, as you have seen, in dharma we have, so there is one general dharma, so this samanya dharma, which applies to all. Then there is a vishesha dharma which applies to individuals. Okay. Now here, when we ask this question, are we talking about, first of all, life? And as I say, is an animal's life the same as a human life? Okay. So let us say, take an extreme example. So here, service to an animal is in the form of saving a life. So if there are two situations, there's an animal life and there's a human life, which is more important, if you have to make a choice? So again, the context is so important. Am I just feeding the animals? Am I just paying for their upkeep? So the context is always important. Without a context, you really cannot answer this question properly. When it comes to sanctity of life, let's just say life, who decides which life is more important than another? Who decides? I have a life. I'm alive. I have life. Now, so is my life more in importance than another person's life? There are two things. One is, who's to make that decision? Is it somebody else or is it me? Okay. So if for each person, the life is as precious. In fact, for each being, the life is precious. Ask a dog. So how precious is your life to you? So when it comes to life is precious to all the same way. So then if it is other issues of service, it depends on how we value it. That is where there is one samanya dharma, from a universal standpoint, every living being's life is as precious to them as any other living being. Okay. So if I have a value for life, then I will not see a difference between whose life it is. Life is life. Life is precious, you know. Now there are other issues that come in contextually. No, I'm not talking of that kind of a thing. I'm just talking of, you know, supporting animals, things like that. Now here it becomes a little personal thing. This is Vishesham. Each one has their own values, personal values, you know. There are people who treat animals better than they treat human beings. There are people who treat human beings better than they treat animals. There are people, so it's that's a personal thing, you know. That's a personal thing. So what is right is, that's why we always strive to live by universal values, samanya dharma. And then contextually you decide, you know, what is right. And also our attitude also becomes important in this, you know. With what attitude? Suppose I say, you know, I'm going to serve animals more than I serve human beings. Because then the question is, what makes you think like that? Well, because I don't trust any people, etc. So now here, so the whole basis, what is the basis of my decision? What makes me do what I do? Those all come to my personal values, you know. In that, all values are not the same. Values are varied. If my values are born out of thinking negatively, or distortions, or misunderstandings, and things like that, then they are not right, they are wrong. If my values are born of objectivity and proper thinking, then, and they are consistent with some universal values, then that is the right answer, you know. So of course, you know, serving, protecting any form of life, that's why we have so many stories, you know, in Puranas, where they show some animal, no, animal comes to take, seeks the protection of a human being, and then the human being will go to all kinds of lengths to protect that animal, you know. So because it's come under its protection, you know. So like that, there are many instances given to show what you value, how we value things, and also how we reach our conclusions. All that has to be consistent with what is right, what is samanya dharma, what are universal values. That our personal values should be subservient to universal values, not reactive. You know, I don't like human beings, therefore I'm going to serve animals. It's good to serve animals, but it's not good to not like human beings. You know, so that those two really, one should not be the reason for the other. So, of course, so, you know, their importance, but when it comes to deciding whether which is better than the other, then we get into all these kinds of contexts. In some contexts, it may be better. In some contexts, it may not be better. So, depending on the situation. No, it's interesting. Bhagavad Gita you're studying. So, Sri Krishna, you know, Arjuna's problem was a certain kind of a problem. And at the end of it, the answer to his question was he has to fight the war that he had to fight. And Sri Krishna taught to him about Atmajnanam. He gave him Brahma Vidya, talked to him about values and all kinds of things he talked to him about. This similar kind of a question was asked by Uddhava, who was a contemporary, a friend of Sri Krishna, towards the end of their life. You know. So now they're all elderly people. And they were towards the end of their life, they've lived the whole thing. And so Uddhava wants to know the knowledge that he had imparted to Arjuna from Sri Krishna. And not only that, it was time for Sri Krishna to leave also, to leave the earth, the earthly form. And so Uddhava was feeling very lost and he didn't know what he should do. And so Sri Krishna teaches him the same teaching, nothing different. Same Atma Vidya, Brahma Vidya, values, everything he talks about in a little different language, but the same knowledge he gives him. Now, Arjuna's problem was, should I fight or should I take sannyasa? Walk away from everything, live a life of contemplation. And his answer was, at the end, you fight. You do what you have to do. That is your dharma right now. For Uddhava, the answer was, you leave everything. You walk away from everything. And then, so which is what he did. And he took to a life of contemplation. Okay. So now it's the same knowledge, it's the same teaching, nothing has changed, but the context was different, So the different, what was right in one context for one person under certain circumstances, for another person, it was in fact the opposite, because the context was different. So context is always very important when it comes to figuring out. That's why one cannot teach right and wrong in the form of a binary thing. Do this, don't do this. Do this, don't do this. You can't do that, So difficult. Commandment. That's why commandments get us stuck, because we think they are absolute. But all these things are really contextual. They have to be understood within the context. So keeping that in mind, then of course one would say, is the service for the care of animals considered the same in importance? Well, you can, maybe under certain circumstances, yes. Under certain circumstances, perhaps no. But that doesn't mean that their life is not as valuable to them as our life is valuable to each one of us, So, okay, that's enough. Next question. When we are born related, example, mother and son or siblings, is there a deeper connection or karma that we have to work out between ourselves? So I'll answer this in two parts. One is, so between people who are related, let us say here by birth, that's the assumption. Is there a deeper connection than people who are not related by birth? Yeah, there definitely is. At many different levels, there is, starting from the DNA onwards. So there is a genetic connection. And then there is a connection, there's a psychological connection. Not just psychology, even just physically. When I'm born, 100% dependent, okay, except for breathing. The only thing I can do for myself is breathe, eat and all that, all basic reflexes. But then otherwise, I'm totally dependent. So I'm always born into an environment among people who take care of me, have to take care of me totally, And so from the moment I am born into this world, so that connection, I'm connected to these people who are immediately around me, my parents, my siblings, my immediate family. And then later on, other people get added to that. So the oldest connections that we have are our parents and then our siblings. So definitely the connections are longer duration and they are also more intense, more intense, partly because of our interdependency. One can look at it that way. You know, we are dependent physically, we are dependent economically, we are dependent emotionally, we are dependent every way to fulfill our needs. So definitely there's no question that there is a deeper connection. We feel connected. Also, not only that, it's not just caretaking, it's also the family gives me sense of security. In the early years, I learned trust, issues of trust, because I have to trust them. Otherwise, I won't survive. So these are all issues that go back a long time, and expectations are there. I have expectations from them that I'll be taken care of. I may not understand all those things, but they are there. And they have expectations of me. So, in other words, there's definitely a deeper connection on many levels between people who have what are those familial bonds. And the closer they are in terms of family, so the more intense, the deeper are the bonds. Then later on, other people get added and it also shifts to other people. So that is one part of it. The other part of it is there a karma? So anyway, so that deeper connection. So, we have a psychological connection that we have to work out in the sense. So sometimes things don't go as we expect between each other naturally. Each one is different. So we have to work out between each of us, considering our deep connections, so that it becomes comfortable for everybody. Okay, let's leave it at that. Then the next question is there a karma connection? So that's a secondary thing. So that depends on, some people don't even accept karma. So they say, well, this is the life. This is the life. I'm born like this. We're going to die. That's the end of it. You know. So you look at the whole thing in the framework of psychology and this life. It doesn't really answer all kinds of questions. So then the way we understand is this karma from the standpoint of karmic connection, because so in terms of results and the actions that we do and the results that we get and the lifetime and earlier lives and things like that. So there is this whole big karma model that we understand in order to understand certain other aspects of life. Okay. So keeping that in mind, then there is a connection too from a karmic standpoint. So then when karma comes into the picture, then definitely there is some karmic connection between what happened before, what I did earlier on, and what and the situation that I find myself in now. That is what we call as karma. So what is it that, just as there has to be some reason why I'm born in a certain situation, I'm put in a certain situation, I am put with certain kind of people, with a certain family, and so on. So there are a lot of things that happen in life, which either we have to say it's all a matter of random things, choice, chance, or we find some more, we look for some other meaning, which seems reasonable, more reasonable than this random choice or chaos, whatever you want to call it. So when you look at it from that standpoint, then this doesn't mean that the other aspects are not there. Psychological aspects and all are there too. So here is a combination. We have interconnections with each other just from the standpoint of, that's how we understand it. Understand it in terms of so many different ways, so many facets. So like I said, including a karmic connection. Okay. So otherwise, we could have been born anywhere, in any environment, in any circumstance. So here, karma helps me understand. Also, not chance is, I don't want to blame anybody in particular. Either I blame somebody for my situations, or I say it's all random, or I say it is I brought it about. It is something that I did, and that is the result of my actions. So either it's the result of my actions or somebody else's actions, including Bhagavan, or it's the result of it just happens to be so. Okay. So these are the ways in which people try to understand. We do believe that there is some other connection, that is why we find a certain meaning and a purpose to our life. Otherwise, really speaking, there's no purpose. Things just happen, they happen. I do what I do. And so that is not enough to explain away life. Okay. Next one. What is the difference between Swadharma and Paradharma? How do we continue Swadharma in our daily worldly life based on the teachings of Gita? So this Swadharma word comes in, a few times in Bhagavad Gita. You're at the second chapter, so you probably came across this verse there. Swadharmamapi chavekshya navikampitum arhasi dharmyadhiyuddhad shreyaha anyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. It talks of the advice Sri Krishna gives to Arjuna. So dharma, we know. Dharma is, so from a universal, there's a samanya dharma, universal right and wrong, which applies to all people the same way, all human beings. For example, speaking the truth, it is something that is inherent. You see it even in young children who are not even grown up enough to understand things. The natural tendency is to speak the truth because it is in keeping with what is there. What time of the day is it? You look out, it's morning, you say it's morning. Okay. That's called truth. It is in keeping with what is there. Untruth is a distortion of what is there. Okay. Distortion either in terms of my understanding, or I know the truth inside, but in terms of what I say, how I say. So that all becomes untruth. Okay, so this is what is called as Samanya Dharma or universal, right versus wrong. Okay. Then there is Vishesha, like I mentioned earlier. So depending on the context, depending on the circumstance, that universal has to be applied. Okay. So in application, the context is always relevant and important. And one's own, not what one needs to do in a given situation and a circumstance, also depends on the individual. Okay. Don't forget, context is not just what's around the situation. Context includes me too. Okay. So who I am, what I am, the same situation where there are two different people, two different positions, so they may need to respond differently. There is a war going on, and there are two people in the army. Okay, not only two people, just these two people. So the one person is supposed to go and stand in the front line. Okay, he's the front line soldier. Another fellow also in the army, he sits far away somewhere in a underground bunker and makes all the decisions. He's safe, totally safe. So he's the top guy, the general, or whatever. So now what kind of a soldiers? Both are soldiers. Both are army people, both are soldiers. Both job is to fight. Now one is out there facing the bullet, the other one is hidden deep down. Okay. So same situation, but then they respond, their response, their swadharma is different. What each one has to do. The first one can't complain that, how come, you're sending me in the front, you're hiding there. So I will make the decisions, all this. So that is swadharma and the, so contextual, okay, application. So here he says, in swadharma, it is what is important, what I need to do in a given circumstance may be different from what another person needs to do, in the same circumstance. Okay. Yeah. So that's why these things become difficult to figure out in life. Otherwise, the answers should be simple. What applies to A should apply to everybody from a universal standpoint, but it doesn't. So when we talk of context, it's not only the situation, but it's also what is my personal obligation in terms of my duty. That is what is called as swadharma. So here he tells him very clearly. He says, so he swadharmam api avekshya. He says, your dharma, keep in mind your dharma. Remember, Arjuna had the problem. Should I fight or should I walk away and live a life of contemplation? Because he knows there are people around him who do that. They go away and they live a life of contemplation. Okay. All these sannyasis and all, they do that. So is it better for me to do that? So that I don't cause all these problems with the fighting. Not because he was afraid to fight. So this was his, but then he says, keep in mind what it may be. So should I do that or should I not do that? Which is better? No, it's like our first question. Which is better? Is it better to fight or is it better to walk away? So that's why, people sometimes they will say, these Hindu fellows are all, they just want to fight. Why they are fight? Because their religion tells them to fight. Hey, our religion doesn't tell them. We talk of ahimsa. No, but Sri Krishna told Arjuna to fight. So he told Arjuna to fight. So you people are just, you fight everybody. That's called distortion. It's not what it is. It's not what it is. So here he says, your dharma, kshatriyasya swabhavikat dharmat. So your dharma as a kshatriya, you are a kshatriya. So which raises the question, okay, fine. Now, so what is my dharma? I have to not only know generally what is right and wrong, but I have to also know right and wrong that is on a personal level. What is right for me? What does that depend on? It's one's swadharma. That in our tradition, we always say, keep in mind, avekshya. Keep that in mind. We follow or we live by, let us say, we don't follow. We live by our swadharma, which is in terms of what we call as varnashrama dharma. Varna and ashrama. These are the two things which we keep in mind. Varna is, he will explain later on very clearly. Varna means it has nothing to do with birth. Okay, we have to be clear about that. It doesn't mention anywhere birth, And it has nothing to do with birth, where you are born, who you are born to, and what your parents are, and who they are, and whatnot. So guna means quality. Guna is the characteristics. We all have different qualities. Each individual is born with certain qualities, okay, gunas. Also, which are not fixed, which change. So as we grow, they change. Our qualities change. That's what is called as the process of maturing, psychological maturing. There is a physical maturity, growth, physical growth, and psychological maturity. Okay. So that is what the change in gunas, change in qualities. So we all have certain qualities and we grow, we mature emotionally, intellectually, in terms of our knowledge, in terms of our understanding. So all these things make me or put me in a position where I make my decisions in a certain way. You know? So these, based on these guna qualities, there are different types of people we broadly categorize, you know, as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So these are the broad categories. They are descriptive. Varna also means a description. So it's a descriptive category depending on my personality, which also changes and is variable. So he says, keep that. That is one factor. So Varna. And the other one is ashrama. Ashrama means stage of life. So stage of life, for example, childhood. No, here also we describe divided. There is childhood. In childhood, there is early childhood. There is late childhood. Then we say there is adolescence. Then we say there is youth. And then there is middle age. And then there is elders or old age or whatever. So we divide this life into certain stages. And what is the purpose of that? So because our capacities are changing, both psychologically, cognitively, physically, and so we go through different stages in life, even emotionally and all. So depending on what stage we are on, there are certain things we can do, certain things we cannot do, certain things we are expected to do, certain things we are not expected to do. Okay. A child is not expected to take responsibilities of a family. He doesn't have the capacity for it. So a child's job is to sit down and learn, to learn about the world, to gain the skills so that you're able to then later on take on certain responsibilities and so on. So each stage of life defines the kind of activities that we can do or cannot do, and also which we are expected to do or not expected to do. So one has to keep that in mind. If I am a student, then I shouldn't be in a position to want to take on certain other kind of responsibilities of an adult, you know, and so on. That is called as ashrama dharma. So thus we have varna dharma and ashrama dharma. So he says, when you have to make a decision about what you should do or what you should not do, swadharma, from my own personal standpoint, I understand what is the universal, right and wrong. But personally, where do I fit in? Keep in mind your own personality, you know, your position, your situation. Okay. And accordingly, you make a decision. That will be right thing for you to do at that time in that context. Okay. If the context changes, then your decision may also change. If you change in your personality and in your qualities, now you're more mature. That's why the way we did things when we are younger, when we were children, when we are older, under the same circumstances, we do differently now. It doesn't mean necessarily that at that time it was wrong or now it is right. It's not necessarily so. It may have been right for a person at that time. That is how one decided. And now also it is right and it's different. You can't go back and say, well, before you did like this, now why you're doing like that? So he says, so varna ashrama dharma, all that you keep in mind, then what you do will be the right thing for you to do. Compared to paradharma. Paradharma. Paradharma means all these apply to somebody else. So it may not, what is right for me maybe is not right for somebody else. Either because their gunas, qualities are different, or their stage of life is different. Okay. So he says, compared to, so in other words, to make a decision that is personal, I should not really look at what is right for somebody else. Even though many times we ask somebody, what would you do? What would you do under these circumstances? As though what the other person would do is necessarily what I should do. It may not be right for me, even though somebody else did something. But there, really speaking, we should not be asking that just in order to imitate what somebody did. We can ask that question if we want to understand what was their process of thinking that led him to that decision. Okay, that I will say can be helpful. So because I don't know how to decide in a given situation, so then I know somebody else. So he seems to do a better job, or she seems to do a better job. So I asked them, hey, what would you do in this situation? And then I don't expect that person to just tell me what they'll do. I expect them to tell me how they reached that decision. How is it that they decided or they would decide what they might do? Then that process of thinking might be helpful to me. Okay. So, but in any case, so he says when you have to make a decision, look at what is your swadharma. And these are the various things that go into determining what one's swadharma is. Dharmyad hi yuddhad shreyaha anyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. So he says, for you as a kshatriya, you're a kshatriya in terms of who you are, what you are. He was a warrior, not by birth. It is not just about birth. He was a warrior by his whole characteristic, his qualities, brave, etc., skilled, and also mature person. Maturity also is there. That's why he taught him Brahma Vidya. So gunas were there. And then also ashrama was there. So he was a young person. That was his job. That plus it was his duty as a king and all that stuff. So when you put that all together, he says, look that as the criterion for your dharma, what is right, rather than what somebody else should do, or what you would do, or what somebody else does when he walks away. He says that is better. And for somebody in your position, he says, Dharmyat yuddhat. You find yourself now in a battle. And fortunately, you find yourself on the side of the right, Really. It's called Dharma Kshetram. It was a battle not just for some property. It was a battle of right dharmam and adharmam. So that was at stake here. The stake was not just a kingdom. The stake was dharma and adharma, because that is what was being practiced by the people at that time. So he says there is nothing which is greater for a warrior than to protect, because that's what they are supposed to do. That was his job. It's like a policeman, the one who is supposed to uphold the law. So he was someone who was supposed to uphold the law, protect the law. So for them, he said, then there is nothing better than for you to do what you have to do as a Kshatriya. So that is how we determine what is Swadharma and what is Paradharma. Really doesn't matter. So unless we are trying to get some idea about how people think. Next question. In the commentary, chapter 2, verse 64, it says, Ragadveshas do not go away overnight. Ambitions and attachments are still there. So one has to live a life of karma yoga for a length of time. Could you please explain this? Ragadvesha viyuktaistu vishayan indriyais charan atmavashyir vidhe atma prasadam adigacchati. Okay. So here Sri Krishna talks of a couple of things. Mentions ragadveshas. Ragadvesha means basically likes and dislikes. Okay. So when I relate to the world at large, I relate to things in a threefold way. I like certain things, I dislike certain things, and also in between, I'm indifferent to certain things. Okay. Whether it may be objects, it may be people, it may be situations, it may be experiences, whatever. So this is what is called as raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes. Normally, the reasons that prompt us to do things are based on likes and dislikes. How do I choose to do something or not to do something? What determines my choices? So the most common, the impulsive thing or the natural thing is likes and dislikes. Things that I like, I go towards. Things I dislike, I turn away from. Things I'm indifferent to, I don't care about. This is how we divide the world. And this often becomes the basis of most of our choices. Is there any other basis of choosing? This is true for any animal life or any life. Even animals do this. They may not have likes and dislikes the way we understand likes and dislikes, but they go towards things which are conducive for their well-being. They also run away from things which are not going to be conducive, going to be harmful, going to give them pain and so on. And then there are other things they are indifferent to. They don't care about. Okay. But then for us, for human being, there is one more way by which we determine what we go for and what we don't go for. And that is what we call as right and wrong. Is what we call the moral order or the right and wrong, or in other words, dharma and adharma. So he says, I can act senses, indriyahi. Normally the senses direct us towards the world outside. Senses, our sense organs, they're all directed outwards. Our mind can be directed outwards or inwards. By outward, I mean when the mind is connected to the sense organs, then I am conscious of the world outside. When my mind is turned towards, not towards the world outside, but my own thinking and so on, then we say it is turned inwards. Okay. So here the senses are normally, when I'm awake, turned outwards towards the world outside, and I act based on likes and dislikes And in case of human beings, also right and wrong. The natural tendency is likes and dislikes. It's simpler. Right and wrong. So for that, I don't need to know much. Even a baby can do that. Whereas right and wrong means it is more cognitive. I need to understand things. So that is a more mature way of dealing or deciding. He says, Atma Vashyaihi. Atma here, the word Atma, Videya Atma. Atma means one's mind. The word Atma is used in many different ways. So Antakaranam, the mind and intellect, this inner equipment is also Atma. So he says this mind which is directed outwards, let it be directed within, in the sense you don't get impelled by just your likes and dislikes, but one should relate to the world more on a cognitive level in terms of one's understanding and understanding of right and wrong. Okay. Because likes and dislikes don't always correspond to right and wrong. It's not that I always, whatever I like is right and whatever I don't like is wrong. If that is true, then there is nothing much to think about. Okay. But very often there is confusion. So what I like, sometimes those things are wrong. And what I don't like, sometimes those things come out to be right. Right means right thing to do. Okay. So that is where there is a conflict is born in my own mind, whether I should do something based on like and dislike, or I should do something based on right and wrong. Okay. So here the sign, as one gains maturity, one acts more and more on the basis of right and wrong. And by maturity, I mean understanding of right and wrong. So he says, prasadam, such a person gains you gain tranquility of the mind. Even just in terms of living, we can live a life based on doing things in a way that makes us restless, agitated. If I just go by likes and dislikes, it's very unpredictable. It's changing. It's variable. Just try it with your little kid. You know what, nowadays people think that what should I do in life? Or do what you like. Do whatever you like. We teach children also like that. What should I be when you grow up? You be whatever you want to be. What should I eat? Eat whatever you want to eat. When should I go to bed? Go to bed whenever you want to go to. You just imagine. Okay. So just try it with the breakfast. People have now, they will have 1 dozen little boxes of breakfast. Then in the morning, ask this little 2-year-old, what do you want to eat? And take him in front of the cupboard. And then he looks at this box, he looks at that box, he can't decide. Because he wants to eat everything. He can't eat everything. He doesn't know how to figure out. Okay. So not only that, he also likes everything. So now you have to decide between all things that you like. Now this should not be a big problem, but it becomes a big problem. So just acting on likes, so the choices seem to be so many. I can't make up my mind. And I can't make up my mind because my mind keeps changing. Even if there's only one choice, then okay, I'll eat it. No, I won't eat it. Then my mind, I can't make up my mind. So those are very unreliable things. No. Whereas right and wrong doesn't change like that. So it gives a certain stability to my mind, to my thinking. And tranquility comes with a stable mind. not a changing, wavering, unpredictable mind, undependable. Uh, So thus he says, do not act, free yourself. Raga dvesha viyuktaha means the one who has freed himself from this making choices based on likes and dislikes. Okay, then you can't free yourself, then what do? You can't just be hanging. Then you have to make choices based on something else. And that something else becomes what is right and what is wrong. And how do I know what is right and wrong? That is where we go back to the earlier questions, which was, well, I have to understand what is right, what is wrong, what is dharma, what is swadharma. And with that kind of attitude, if I relate to the world, then I get prasannata, this prasadam. Prasadam adhigachati means my mind. Then you also don't care what comes to you, doesn't agitate. I do something based on what is right and wrong. That itself is a big satisfaction. I do things in life to get something. Nothing wrong. But then, so now I wait. Did I get it? Am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? Am I going to get it? Am I not going to get it? And if I get what I'm wanting, then I'm happy. But when it comes to doing right and wrong, really, the very act of doing on the basis of right and wrong gives a certain kind of satisfaction to the mind. And then whatever comes, even it may not be exactly what I expect, I am more content with that. That's why he uses the word prasadam. He gains a state of mind that is like prasadam. When you go to the temple and then you offer something, every time you go, you offer, buy the best fruit in the store, mangoes and so on, and go and offer. Then offer. And then the priest always gives you something. No, from the altar, they will give something. That's called prasadam. So bless, like a blessing. So it's blessing from Bhagavan. And then whatever he gives, we accept and you feel blessed. You feel blessed. Now, what he gives, sometimes he just arbitrarily gives. At least he's supposed to. So sometimes he'll give a fruit. Sometimes you get the mango, same mango. Or sometimes you get somebody else's mango, somebody else's fruit. Sometimes some flower or some water or some whatever it is, leaf. But the attitude of whether you don't think, oh, do I like this or do I not like this? Or is this what I gave or is this? I always get leaf and I always bring mango. My friend always brings the leaf and he always gets mango. Next time, I think I'll also bring leaves only. So this kinds of thinking we don't do. You're so happy, feel blessed. So that is a state of mind. He says that kind of a state of mind, because there is a satisfaction in living a life of dharma, which is just there, even in the action itself. So there's one more question, which is actually a big question. But answer is going to be small because I'll just quickly say it. Many times in the commentary, the Atma is said to be Satchidananda. Could you please explain this? Okay. So this is a very, very big answer. Because you're going to be studying 18 chapters. The main subject matter is Atma, Atma Vidya. What is the nature of Atma? And Atma is explained as being Satchidananda Swarupam. Okay. So definitely this is what the whole teaching is about in a broad sense. Okay. Then of course the word Satchidananda has certain meanings. You know. The word Atma also is used in certain ways. So I will give you, I will explain some of it the next time. And then, but this is really, keep in mind, this is something what we are studying in the whole of the Bhagavad Gita. This is a pursuit called Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya. But I mean, specifically, I will cover it next time. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.